Hey, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Welcome back to the channel. I'm joined today again by my brother, Stuart.
It's Slim Thick Incorporated. We're here to bring you some holiday magic and holiday cheer.
Ding, 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 ding. Around the holidays, people love to eat food. That's a really big part of the holiday spirit and celebrating Christmas and celebrating Thanksgiving and all that stuff. And so today we wanted to come together and rate 10 different foods that are traditional dishes that are served around Christmas time. And we'll just give our opinions on those Christmas dishes. And we're going to rate them 1 through 10. But we're going to start with number 10. So we're going to look through a couple of these real quick. Some of these may not be the tastiest treats, but it's okay because they're just traditional dishes. And
if these are your favorite, it's not a personal affront to you or your family. We're sure you make it tasty yourself.
All right. We're going to start with fruitcake at number 10, because I'm not really a big fan of fruitcake, but that's okay. Fruitcake is still a traditional Christmas dish. Less like cake and more like a brick that you can eat with fruit in it.
It's got some tart, tangy, disgusting texture and some delicious bricky flavors to it. It's a cake that's bricked up.
So apparently the fruitcake can be traced back to ancient Egypt. Apparently it was a long-lasting cake, have a good shelf life. Apparently ancient Roman warriors had a mixture of barley, pomegranate seeds, nuts, raisins, mixed with honeyed wine. And they used to call the cakes satura, and they actually kept them satiated through long marches during the empire.
I mean, they're full of sugar and like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Let me see. European crusaders actually carried their version of this thing with bread, honey, spices, dried fruit, and mead during their long treks to the Holy Land during the Crusades.
What a magical dessert and a dish that you can have. And you can just buy this at Walmart. You can buy this straight off the shelf. It's pre-made, or you can make it at home.
Yeah.
How gross of an idea is that? Just kidding. It's probably not that bad. I've never eaten it. I wouldn't know, would I?
I've tried it before. It's a little bit too sweet for me, and I'm not really a fan of fruit in cakes. Apparently, by the 1400s, the Catholic Church prohibited bakers from using butter for cakes during Advent because it was a time for fasting. What this ended up doing is the knights still carried cake, but it wasn't as good, called Stollen, which is the German version of fruit cake, and it's made from flour, oil, yeast, and water.
Oh my God, that had to have been so heavy calorically. That is horrendous. And sugar too, probably.
Eventually, after people were complaining about this, the Pope actually lifted the ban on butter after putting in a tax that made it more exclusive. Okay.
Fruitcake overall is going to be lower down on the list for me.
Yeah. I'm going to keep that at number 10 because I'm not a really big fan.
I'm going to put that at 9 for me mentally because I know there's something way
worse fruity
out there.
It's fruity and it's a cake. Number 9 is figgy pudding.
That's already taken my lowest tier right
Which
there.
is part of that, what's that song called?
What the hell? I have no idea.
Now give us some figgy pudding. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
That's part of that song.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no kidding. It's from that song, We Wish You a Merry Christmas.
Oh,
so, figgy pudding. Apparently, the origins of figgy pudding go back to the medieval ages. Apparently, at that time, it wasn't a dessert, but was a method of preserving meats for the winter months. Dried meats and fruits were kept in a pastry bag, and then liquids were added to the dried mix. It all expanded, and then when cooked in pies, it fed many people.
It's made out of dried fruit, suet, which is a hard animal fat, spices like nutmeg, allspice, cinnamon, cloves, and ginger, brown sugar, or treacle. I should know this given my background. That sounds delicious.
Apparently, it was originally called frumenti.
Frumenti.
And it was made with beef, mutton, raisins, currants, prunes, wine, and several spices. It was more like soup than bread.
Yeah, that sounds horrendous. Although, I mean...
By the end of the 14th century, they added eggs to it, so you had a little bit extra clean protein. Breadcrumbs, dried fruits, beer, and spirits to give it more of a flavor and a thicker consistency. Today, figgy pudding is more like bread, apparently.
Apparently like a solid, you can scoop it like a loaf.
In Victorian England, the pudding contained less meat with additions of flour, suet, sugar, fruits, and spices, which resulted in the delicious Christmas dessert of today. It's also called plum pudding by some, although there are no plums in it. Why would they call it plum pudding if it doesn't have any plums in it?
I want to say it has something to do with the fact that it's a traditionally British cuisine.
It'd be like saying, oh, this is carrot cake, but there's no carrots in it.
Carrots in it.
Well, it's not carrot cake, is it? Liar! How long does figgy figgy pudding take to make? A traditional figgy pudding takes 2 days. Takes 2 days to make a cake.
Most things that take a long time to make typically taste better in my mind.
Oh, it depends on how it's being prepared.
Unless you're talking about like haggis or something like
I don't like. The first day is when all the ingredients are mixed well, covered, refrigerated, and left overnight. On the next day, you grease a basin, steel pan with no handle. You put the dough in it, you cover the dough with wax paper, and then the basin is then sat in a large pan of water to steam for 8 hours. When the pudding is cool, it's wrapped in wax paper, put into a pastry bag, and stored until Christmas Day. Prior to serving, the pudding is warmed up by the steaming method for 2 hours.
Oh.
And to serve, warm brandy is poured over the pudding and lit on fire. The flaming pudding is ceremoniously taken to the table as the family anxiously waits that great moment.
Oh, it's like a flambe. That's actually pretty kick. That actually doesn't sound too bad at all.
Figgy pudding at number 9 for me.
Pudding's number 9.
And number 8
is the Yule.
Is the Yule log.
The Yule.
Yule.
The log of Yule.
The Yule log is a pretty ancient tradition too, or they believe that it was Germanic in origin. It was an ancient symbol of winter and a celebration of winter solstice, giving magical protection to the home and those who live there. This tradition was adopted in countries of Christian faith, becoming historically prevalent in the United Kingdom during the winter season known as Yuletide, from the Old English word Yule, taken from various translations of Germanic, Old Norse, Scandinavian language. Hence the joining of cultures and traditions in the name Yule log. Toasting the log. Toasting the log.
You gotta toast the log.
That just sounds like...
It sounds really gross.
It sounds like that meme of that log in the toilet, like an entire actual like cut wood log that's in the toilet. Choosing and cutting the log was a ceremony in itself, often with singing and merriment to accompany. Some historical reports say ale and cider were involved. The traditional Yule log was specifically chosen for its large proportions. Often the log was so heavy it had to be dragged back to the house by several big, strong men.
Wow.
There was always deep snow when you cut down the Yule log back in the olden days.
When it used to snow more.
The party continued with toastings and much backslapping when the gang arrived home. Even the log got a dousing of ale before being set on fire.
Ooh.
The traditional Yule log recipe, traditionally made with a mix of light chocolate sponge filled with chocolate cream and covered with a thick coating of chocolate buttercream icing, especially scrolled to resemble the patterns of tree bark, and then often it was dusted with icing sugar for a snowy effect. Yeah, you can see Yule logs all over the place. You go into any grocery store during the holidays and you're going to see them probably right at the front next to the door, because that's where they like to store all of the sweets and cakes and pies and everything. So that's the first thing you see when you walk in there, which is one of the reasons why it's never a good idea to go to the grocery store when you're hungry. Because if you're hungry when you get there and the first thing you see is a delectable cake with icing covered with delicious looking buttercream,
The dusting of like sugar, powdered sugar.
or a beautiful looking golden brown apple pie, freshly baked in the Harris Teeter Bakery.
By the time this video comes out, where you used to see all the pumpkins and the pumpkin pie and the pumpkin sandwich cookies, it's all Yule logs, Christmas cookies.
All right, so I'm going to go with that. That's going to be number 8. It's number 8.
That's number 8.
Gregnog.
Gregnog. If you guys didn't know, Gregnog comes from my buddy Greg out in Pittsburgh. He just makes a bunch of Gregnog in his bathtub and
Old Greg
Walmart sells it. Shout out Greg. If your name's Greg out there,
If your name's Greg, this one's for you, Greg. Yeah, this one's for you, Greg. Whoever you are, wherever you are. Shout out to you. So apparently historians have traced the origins of eggnog
to the medieval British punch called posset.
that sounds really gross.
Pulset.
Is that-
Warm milk curdled with alcohol, such as wine or beer flavored with spices. In medieval Europe, monks added their own twist by serving posset with figs and eggs. By the 17th century, the aristocracy drank their eggnogs with sherry as a sign of wealth. That's an interesting thing about the medieval ages, is like oftentimes the wealthiest people were in the worst health because they all had enough money to buy, nice alcoholic beverages and cakes and pastries and all kinds of stuff like that. And they oftentimes had more money to eat more than their fill. Whereas like a lot of the impoverished people, eggnog in colonial America was made with rum traded from the Caribbean islands, as it was less expensive than most liquors shipped from England. The rich brew evolved into the essential holiday drink across the colonies, and each area made a version of the drink unique to that region. While many colonists used rum, Southern families preferred bourbon or whiskey. Makes sense, especially considering George Dickel legal. I'm pretty sure a lot of whiskey and bourbon's manufactured in like Kentucky and Tennessee.
It's all coming from Kentucky and Tennessee, and then a lot of the moonshine just comes from the Blue Ridge Mountains area.
But that's all the bourbon whiskey stuff is considered a pretty southern beverage. Once the western states were settled, eggnog was served either hot or over ice and included different spirits like Madeira wine, hard cider, or tequila. Interesting. In the 19th century, doctors believed the drink an ideal way to deliver prescriptions and nutrients for those on liquid diets. Doctors included eggnogs as a part of a convalescent diet for patients recovering from typhoid fever, dysentery, diphtheria, operations, ulcers, and tuberculosis. Eggs consist of proteins, fats, and essential vitamins and support many vital bodily functions. Warming spices, including nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger, turmeric, cayenne, have beneficial properties for health, providing relief to stomach cramps, diarrhea, nausea, and flatulence. An 1884 hospital eggnog recipe for patients in a nurse's journal runs: to a tumbler full of milk add 1 egg, well beaten, sweetened to taste, tablespoonful of brandy, whiskey, or port wine.
Thank God we've evolved. I've been learning about all these tube feedings and people that suffer from dysphagia and things like that they can't eat.
Now a lot of people drink eggnog throughout the holidays just because it's like a super, it's a holiday
Super
drink
rich type of thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's very thick in consistency. I think I've seen a lot of people bourbon and whiskey in their eggnog for sure, though.
I've seen that, and you dash it with cinnamon.
I'm pretty sure Jack Daniels makes their own eggnog. Number 6 is the charcuterie board. And the reason why is because oftentimes when you're celebrating the holidays, you're celebrating it with lots of people. Typically, you're having your family over, you're going over to your family's house, and there's a lot of people there, and somebody's cooking all the food, but it's always never ready right in time when everyone gets there, so they set stuff out that's kind of like appetizers, but not necessarily exactly like an appetizer. And this way, it's something people can nibble on and munch on while they're waiting for the actual entrees and main course to be ready. So charcuterie boards are a great way to do that because you got cheese, you got crackers, you got prosciutto and salami and all kinds of stuff like that. Charcuterie is derived from a French term, charcute, which means cooked flesh.
That's a pretty metal term.
Interesting. Most charcuterie deal with meats like prepared ham, sausage and bacon, prosciutto, salami, things like that. The term actually describes the 15th century pork butcher shops that you would see in France where they sold meat that had been salted and smoked to better preserve the food. In traditional times, finding unique ways to preserve meat was crucial because there were no refrigerators, so charcuterie originally referred to cold cured meats. It's very true because back then they didn't have refrigerators. They didn't even have ice boxes yet in the 15th century. 1500s, people did not have refrigerators. So they salted things and dried them and cured them to preserve meat for longer because then you could have it sitting on the shelf for a longer period of time and eat off of it for longer without having to worry about it going bad. So yeah, charcuterie board is usually a wooden platter that has a broad selection of food on it. Usually you've got meat, cheese, sometimes you've got apples on there, sometimes chocolates, fruits, nuts, veggies. Basically you got just like a plethora of all kinds of stuff that people could snack on while they're waiting for the entrees to be finished cooking. And that's number 6.
Yep.
Sugar cookies. Everybody loves cookies around Christmas time because there's always so many tasty treats. So if you've got an annual height and weight to do, you might want to do it before Christmas. Aside from gingerbread houses and gingerbread, sugar cookies are another staple in Christmas. The tradition started in the 1700s when German settlers in Pennsylvania brought over the traditional unleavened, easy-to-store treat from Europe. Pliable sugar cookie dough is easy to roll and cut into shapes, which adds to its popularity at Christmas time.
The Pillsbury Doughboy knows what he's doing. Pre-packaged ones that you can get in Walmart with the little shapes on them for every different holiday.
It's a simple recipe of flour, butter, sugar, eggs, vanilla, and baking soda or baking powder blended together to form a light, simple, and delicious cookie.
Just make some sugar cookies, homemade, easy day. Get some icing on there you can pick up from the stove.
See, a lot of people make sugar cookie Christmas ornaments too. You've seen them hanging on people's trees in different locations. So not only are they good to eat, but they're good to hang up on your tree if you don't feel like eating them.
Don't eat them if you hang them up on your tree for more than a day.
Oh yeah, well that's another thing. Like if they're sitting up there hanging on a tree, they're gonna cure and harden to this like the thickness of like a rock.
You could probably crack a windshield with one of those.
Yeah. Number 4 is pecan pie.
What the hell is in pecan pie?
All right, so pecans or pecans. I don't know how you guys say it.
Argue in the comments.
Pecan.
So apparently pecan pie is an American tradition or American creation, American concoction, American confection. Pecan trees and stuff like that, they're all over the place in the South. They're in Georgia, they're in North Carolina, they're in Alabama, along the Mississippi River, places like that. Some cookbooks started popping up in like the 1870s and the 1880s with the first recipes of what looked closely like pecan pie. Because once people started getting these nuts, they started trying to find ways to bake with them. Started off in Texas, apparently.
Joe Rogan, you cooking pecan pie down there?
The first recipe that most closely resembles what we know today as pecan pie was published in 1898 in a church charity cookbook. Oh, never mind. In St. Louis, but it was sent in by a Texas woman. Okay, so take that back. Apparently it was from or originated in St. Louis. Probably is being made in other places long before that. It's just nobody published it.
But it was brought in
I guarantee that's
woman.
probably what the case was. I guarantee there are people in Tennessee, in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia that were making pecan pie long before that, but probably just didn't tell anybody. They're just like, yeah, this is something we do. Apparently the pie didn't surge in popularity until the mid-1920s. That's when the manufacturer of Caro syrup began printing a recipe for pecan pie on cans of the product. Wide distribution of Caro syrup introduced many people to pecan pie who found it was quite simple to make. It's technically classified as a sugar pie. Apparently the makers of Caro syrup, they used a cup of the Caro syrup along with eggs, sugar, butter, vanilla extract, and of course pecans. Alternatives for Caro syrup include brown sugar and molasses, and some recipes add bourbon, rum, or whiskey into the mix as well. Pecan pie is almost always baked in a traditional pie crust as opposed to a crumble or cookie crust. So not only is pecan pie a staple in Thanksgiving, but it's also a popular dish around the holidays like Christmas time as well.
It's delicious.
Number 3, we're gonna go with roast beef or prime rib.
That's a pretty good one, right? I also feel like the prime rib is more of a specialized Christmas kind of thing because the roast beef is more of a, well, at least in this country, seems like it's more of a staple for a sandwich.
Standing rib roast, one of my favorite things, because a standing rib roast, when you cut it and portion it up, it creates ribeyes. A standing rib roast is like a stack of ribeyes, and ribeyes are my favorite steak, my favorite cut of beef. So apparently it's thought that prime rib at Christmas first became popular during the Industrial Revolution because this was when meat butchering standards improved to the point where more families in the United Kingdom, Australia, Ireland, and the United States could enjoy high-quality beef dinners. Different cuts of beef are more popular than others, with the meat cut from the primal rib section of the animal being the most popular and the highest quality. This is where the name prime rib came from.
Delicious. You gotta make yourself a good au jus and then use that in order to heat it up.
So prime rib is juicy and tender and gets its flavor from a couple of factors. Because of the fact that it's so marbled, it's both flavorful and moist. Marbled meaning because there's a lot of fat on it. Ribeyes are typically a very fatty cut of beef because of the location of it, right? According to some sources, an additional reason prime rib became so popular was that prior to the 1940s, it was considered an economical option for a holiday meal. Turkeys were something that only a small section of the elite could enjoy since they were obtained during special turkey shoots, and mass production of poultry and home freezers wasn't widely available until the 1950s. So it was easier for people to get beef than it was for them to get turkeys. It became increasingly popular. Now, obviously, a turkey is much easier to get for people because they're just, factory farming and all that stuff. But standing rib roasts are quite expensive. Prime rib, number 3, but almost number 1 in my heart. So number 2 is hot cocoa or hot chocolate. And apparently, the Mayans are credited with the creation of hot chocolate.
I saw something about that.
From over 2,000 years ago.
That chocolate's hot.
Chocolate's
hot.
Chocolate is made from cocoa.
The other bean is for the adult angry stuff.
Fermented seeds from the cacao tree, native to Central and South America, are what contribute to chocolate the most. The Mayans ground the cocoa seeds into a paste and mixed it with water, cornmeal, and chili peppers along with other spices to create an abundance of flavors. They would then put it back and forth into cups, creating a foamy top, but the drink was served cold, not exactly what we're used to. Another cocoa beverage was made in 1400 by the Aztecs. Aztec hot chocolate is similar to Mayan, but adds vanilla to the chili pepper on top.
That sounds amazing.
What later became a Mexican hot chocolate is semi-sweet chocolate, cinnamon, sugar, vanilla with churro pastries. Europeans made this drink popular when they brought it back from Mexico. Here in the United States, we drink a thinner hot cocoa minus the spices. Yeah, so hot cocoa here, it's not like liquid chocolate. It's more like a lighter beverage. It's like light chocolate, like chocolate drink light. And part of the reason why we probably drink it a lot around the holidays is because it's warm, and typically the holidays are a little colder because it's the winter time or it's deep into the fall. And so people like a nice warm beverage like a hot toddy or hot chocolate or hot coffee. So
it can be even lighter if you're making it with water instead of milk, but personally I think it with milk is better. But if you can't drink dairy.
Everybody likes hot cocoa. Yeah, if you don't like hot chocolate,
Why?
why? And now for number 1.
If it's really...
Mashed potatoes.
You guys know about mashed potatoes? Have you heard of this?
What do you guys know about mashed potatoes, huh?
What do you losers know about mashed potatoes?
Get in, losers. We're going to get mashed potatoes.
Get in, losers. Our potatoes are getting mashed on almost every single Christmas and Thanksgiving plate as far back as I can remember.
So everybody's had mashed potatoes throughout their whole life, probably. If you're alive and you're a human being, you've probably had mashed potatoes at least once for some meal somewhere. But mashed potatoes are definitely very popular around the holidays because it's easy to serve. You serve it with gravy, and it's just part of the deal. You just eat mashed potatoes with everybody else.
But I could get behind throwing bacon and cheese in there.
So apparently potatoes originally came from the Andes in Chile around 10,000 years ago. And obviously there's a lot of nutritional value in potatoes because it provides you with a lot of energy. It's a good carbohydrate. It's a starch. It was a staple in the South American diet and helped the mountain-dwelling communities stay stabilized, while European nations such as the Irish were getting hit hard with famine. By the time the Spanish arrived and conquered the Andeans in the mid-14th century, it had transformed into a more pleasant, totally edible vegetable thanks to the selective breeding tactics of the Andes people. From there, it was on a fast track to fame because it was brought back to Europe, and though at first it was shunned and outlawed, potatoes were outlawed in France 1748 to 1772.
I'm sorry, y'all ate
They were
snails?
outlawed.
You ate snails, but potatoes were over the line?
Well, apparently the French considered it food for livestock and not fit for human consumption. Now the potato is the third most consumed food source in the world, and it is a very common food item for people to have.
It's pretty much good every single way except for cold. What's a way of eating potatoes cold that's good?
Apparently, Queen Victoria was the person who actually introduced the potato to the Christmas menu. Potatoes had a massive impact on human history. Pretty crazy. Yeah, but potatoes, mashed potatoes are definitely like number 1 for everybody, I'm pretty sure. Apparently, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and George Washington all owned copies of Hannah Glass's cookbook.
Well, you go, lady.
Anyway, obviously, the holidays is a really good time to get together and eat lots of good food. You know, if you're on a diet most of the year and you're like taking your diet seriously because you don't want to overeat or you don't want to eat certain things because you know it's not good, that's okay. It's okay to diet during the year, but during the holidays, enjoy yourself.
Pump the brakes a little bit.
Pump the
Enjoy
brakes,
yourself.
eat some good food, eat some of the whole hearty meals, enjoy the time with your friends and family. If you don't have any friends and family, go make some good food at the house or in your apartment or whatever for yourself and just enjoy some good food and relax.
And if you're in a place where you're not able to enjoy yourself so much, like if you're in the military and overseas or something like that, sorry to hear that. And if you're going to be in a place where you can't enjoy the holidays like boot camp, like one of us here was, try your best to just remember that there's always something to be thankful for.
All right, guys, have a Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, everybody.